Sounds great.
Doesn't it? Hey everybody, welcome to another episode on Andertons TV, and it's a very special Captain Meets interview today because despite the fact that I've known Rabeas since he was 4 years old, we've never actually done a proper interview with him. So welcome.
Hello.
Officially.
This is great.
I know, as
nice.
The subject of a video.
I feel a bit
than
weird.
Just a normal co-presenter.
I know, it feels slightly odd, but it's good.
It's very cool actually because despite the fact that I haven't really known him since he was 4, but I've known Rabea for a while, but we've never really delved, into what it was like.
We've just talked a lot of random stuff over the years.
Random rubbish.
Yeah.
So I think most people will know a little bit about you from where you're at the moment and musically what you're doing right now. But if we go back to the start. I've met your mum and dad.
You have.
Super cool people. So
yeah.
I can imagine that growing up in the Massaad household was surrounded by cool things and cool music. But take us back.
Take you back. I so grew up in Leeds in West Yorkshire, and my dad was in a band with his brothers. That was kind of so. My mum worked full time. My dad did basically the band thing, like the classic band dream with his brothers, and. Yeah, they used to gig a lot and they'd write a lot of music, but they used to rehearse at home. So the dining room of the house at the time would basically have them rehearsing like a few nights a week, and they lived locally. And so I'd be in there sometimes with ear defenders on or whatever,
Wicked.
Just sitting around. And I remember my dad had a Fender Strat, and you remember the old hard shell cases that had it like engraved into the case?
Yeah.
Well, I used to just be obsessed with that, and I used to play with all my toys on it and then open it up when he wasn't there and play with the guitar, really just not trying to play. But I actually played drums first. That was the thing that kicked it off, I think, because I was a mischievous young child and making noise and annoying parents was definitely the main thing on my agenda most days. But yeah, I had no interest in music or guitar for a long time. Started playing drums from like 8 in a band at school called Camouflage.
Good name. Good name.
Camouflage. We played the school disco.
Kind of stuff we
played Sheryl Crow. We played Sheryl Crow. That song "Change Would Do You Good" or something.
Sheryl Crow.
Yeah, she was great.
She's a fox.
Yeah, she is. She's great.
But where did that? So it was just a poppy rock band, was it at that time?
Yeah, I think we wrote one song, and I can't remember. It was I think it was called "Madly in Love." Yeah, so I was the drummer though. So
how old were you again?
8.
Of course, you know all about that.
Yeah,
8 years old.
Yeah. But we did that. That was quite a lot of fun. And then I just kind of didn't really do much with music at all. Went to high school, sort of got involved there, and then picked up drums again. But really, skateboarding was the thing I was obsessed with.
So I'm confused here then. So
I was kind of around music from a young age.
But the guitar, which obviously you're known for now.
Yeah.
How old were you when you picked one of those?
I was nearly 16.
No
way.
Yeah.
Didn't really play guitar at all. I think I picked it up around 11, 12 for maybe 8-9 months, but really just bar chords and stuff in year 7. But then I just kind of didn't enjoy it. I think we played a gig. I remember playing some sort of like local community park thing in town, and it went really badly. Like I was just rubbish, and I couldn't. And I tried to do a guitar solo, and it went horribly wrong. We got video of it somewhere. It's really bad. And I look just in the video so angry because it's just I know it's terrible.
It'd be so awesome if we could get 5 seconds of that video to appear just here.
Well, that was terrible, and so I think that put me off. And drums was more fun still, and then skateboarding took over my life. To be honest, for quite a few years, and I did. You know, there was a year where a few competitions were entered and things like that. So I was really into it, and then I snapped my ACL, which put me out of action completely from drumming as well, because I had to have like a brace and crutches and all this rest of it, and. I think through boredom and not being able to do anything musically, picked up the guitar. It was just at the house because my dad had stopped playing. His band had finished, and he didn't get rid of his Fender or anything. So I just started strumming that again, and I think from drumming was like, oh, I can hold a groove. This is progressing quite quick. And it wasn't until there was a guy working on the extension of the house who was a plumber, and he heard me noodling away or whatever, and he walked in. He's like, oh, you play guitar, do you? I'm from Yorkshire or whatever. And I was like, yeah. He's like, have you heard of Metallica? Well, yeah, kind of. Yeah, I don't really listen to him. He's like, right, I'll come back tomorrow with something for you. He walks in, he's like, here's Master of Puppets. There's a tab book and the CD. And he's like, learn that. You'll thank me later. I was like, okay. So I had this Master of Puppets tab book and Master of Puppets, and I just started learning that. I mean, I wasn't even really a huge Metallica fan, but it was like a challenge to overcome. And I think through learning the solos and learning the rhythm, it took me maybe a year of solid practice, but I got through it to the point where I was like, right, what's next? And then that's how guitar suddenly became an obsession, was like the next challenge and then the next challenge. And then it was when my dad went, extreme, Nuno Betancourt, learn this, learn the whole back catalogue, see where you get. And then that was me.
So prior to Nuno, I mean, I know Nuno's your sort of mega hero. But at 16, when you're just getting back into, or probably getting into the guitar for the first time seriously, semi-seriously, who was the guitar hero? Or really wasn't there one?
I think at the time, there wasn't really one, but I think the first time I ever sort of felt like that's somebody I want to be able to play like, the first time was probably Justin Hawkins from The Darkness.
Really?
Because I'd done Metallica and that was fun. But then The Darkness exploded around that time, and I think it was just the white Les Paul Custom and the just the flaunting it all, and he could shred a bit. And I remember just thinking that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I saw him at Leeds Fest, and then it was like, yeah, I want to do that, learn that album. And then my mate dropped off The Extremist by Joe Satriani, played me some Yngwie, and I was like, there's no way I'll be able to do that. Nah, we'll put that to one side. But The Extremist, I started learning that, and I think those two in tandem. It was like a bit of Satch and a bit of The Darkness, and it was doing that, and then Extreme took over, really. But yeah, that wasn't really a thing until then.
What on the Extreme front? I mean, I remember Porn and Graffiti coming out when in the, what was that, mid to late 80s. So you were listening to Extreme, what?
Many years
15
later.
years after they'd really had their...
Well, yeah, I mean, I was born in 88, so... That's when it came out, wasn't it? Or 89 or something, it came out then. So I wasn't around when it was big, you know. And I think, because my dad was into it, he used to put it on in the car when we were young, before music.
Huge.
Rest in Peace was the song from Three Sides to Every Story that they played it in his band, and they were really into that particular song. And I think that album is much bigger for me, Three Sides, but Porn and Graffiti was obviously huge.
Yeah. So you've gone from, you know, getting back into the guitar. Clearly, there's something about the kind of the guitar virtuoso that you've liked, whether it's Satch or Nuno or whatever. when did it feel, were you in a place where it was easy for you to join a band? I mean, I know Ben and Dave are old friends of yours. So was that just a natural thing, or did you have to sort of audition to be in other bands, or what was the...
I had a couple of friends at school that kind of took an interest in it. There was a guy I used to skate with a lot, Ross Brabiner, and he really liked Blink-182.
Okay.
And at the time, I liked them as well from skating, the skater punk thing. And he didn't drum at the time, but he always took an interest. So I, being a drummer, showed him a few basics, and then he just went off on one, became a drummer at school at least. And then it was, okay, well now I've got a drummer. And then there was a mate of mine that was like, I'll give bass a bash, And so we just had a 3-piece called Call for Aid. And then that was quite fun. We used to giggle around that. We did a few Battle of the Bands and recorded some songs, and that's really embarrassing as well. I sang, I was lead vocals.
Drums and singing?
No, lead guitar.
Oh, sorry, so you're guitarring now and singing, right.
And it was terrible.
Was it? I don't think I've ever heard you sing.
No, it's bad. It's bad. It's me really trying and just being like, well, I've got no choice here. Instrumental music wasn't really a thing back then, or one that I wasn't aware of, but... Yeah, that kind of got set up in GCSE year, really. So I'd been playing seriously for maybe 18 months, 2 years. So I could play a few riffs and a few bits of lead. And then after GCSE, then it was Leeds College of Music, which is where I met Dave.
Right.
So that was 2004 or 5.
Right.
So
how do you, I don't want to blow smoke up your backside or anything like that, but how do you go from starting to learn to play the guitar at 16 and getting to the kind of level that you were by 18 or 19? Because there's got to be, was it just an intense amount of dedication towards playing it, or was there a teacher that inspired something, or was it the drumming background?
I think something that I have that maybe other people do as well is I just have a lot of patience. And I think when I was that age, and I still have it now, I'd be trying to learn a song or a solo or something, and I literally would keep doing it over and over and over and over again, and not getting annoyed, just being like, I haven't got it. It's almost like a tunnel vision state of mind, and would not stop until I'd got it down. And then I would do that daily because I'd be trying to do this or that, and just always wanting to play the guitar for that sort of intense learning period of 3-4 years. And just spent hours and hours just obsessing over the nuances in like Nuno's playing in that solo or something, and having to make it sound... I had to listen to it and go, that sounds exactly like it. And so that obsession, I mean, it's probably some, my mum once thought I was a bit autistic in that way. Like I've got a bit of an obsessive thing about having something to have it under my fingers. And I think that's probably what it was, just not stopping, just being really patient and calm for hours on end until it was there,
I wonder if that's something that maybe the fact that you were a slightly later adopter of the guitar almost helped with. If you'd have been 11 or 12, maybe wouldn't have been able to.
Might have lost interest a bit more. Yeah.
And were you trying to do it from ear, or this sounds awful really, doesn't it? But was YouTube even a thing then?
No.
So you
no
would have
Google
to do
video,
it.
no YouTube.
So you get tabs and listen to the music. Really, is
I almost exclusively put the CD on and then rewound it and would listen. And I think that's been a huge help for me as a guitarist since then, is listening to something and then sort of transcribing it with my ears and working it out. It's just been super handy it's got me so far just from that time of just listening to a CD and rewinding it. And when I was younger with my mates, they'd put on like theme tunes or something, and from having that trained ear, I could sort of quickly like play the theme tune along with it, and they thought it was amazing. I was waiting. I thought, we're doing all right here. We're going all right for now.
If anybody doesn't know, that is a British sitcom. That anyway, whatever. So, what was the like? You obviously chose to go to Leeds College of Music. So, had you was enrolling there the sort of the first step on a journey? You'd already kind of decided in your mind, okay, I want to be a musician.
Yeah,
let's do this.
Much to my dad's displeasure, I suppose.
Really?
Because his experience had been really up and down and around the houses, and because his band got a record deal,
right,
and they went to Germany to record it, and then the whole thing kind of just fell apart. And I think that's when he kind of stopped playing guitar. And so his experience had been like good in parts, but then really bad. And he was like, I just don't want that for my son. I just want him to get a degree and just go on and have a normal job.
What would a normal job have been, do you think, for you?
I can't even imagine. I think I was good at art.
Right.
So maybe in the art world, whether it be illustration was my thing that I really, really enjoyed. I still do, but that's probably where it had gone. But he didn't want me to do music at all. And I think at that point I went, I'm going to go to Leeds College of Music because I want to be a guitarist.
Yeah.
I want to be a rock star. That's all I thought to myself. I'm going to do that. And and then after that it was just music for the rest until now.
That's great. So I know you studied at Leeds and then you came to ACM. So you had, quite a intensive period of quite structured sort of learning. What did you, what were the good and the bad things, do you think, about that time of your life from a learning sort of perspective? I'm trying to think of what advice would you maybe give to people who are perhaps of that age thinking about what to do?
That's a great question. And I think I'm definitely, and there'll be people that relate to this, like I wasn't an academic at all. Just if it was fun, I'd enjoy it, whether it be whatever subject. And so when I went to Leeds College of Music, I think there wasn't a big enough gap from high school to college where I did have a chance to kind of get a bit of perspective and go, I'm choosing to do this, so I should take it seriously. So Leeds College of Music was a massive DOS for me. I just went there and I didn't focus. I just messed around, played loads of guitar, met Dave and did a lot of jamming, but I barely passed.
Right.
And I think it really annoyed me actually after I'd finished, because I was like, that was a waste of opportunity. And then after that, we moved into a house together as the band, and we worked full time for 4 or 5 years. So from like 2007-6 till 2010, me, Ben and Dave and Charlie, the singer in the old band, we lived in a house together and worked full time. So I worked at Bradford and Bingley in debt collection.
So it was a 4-year gap between finishing Leeds College of Music and going. So what's that? You finished Leeds at 18 or something, and then didn't start at ACM till 22 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
I didn't realise. So so you had 4 years of the real world.
I worked full time jobs, debt collection. I sold stair lifts, to cold calling stair lifts, and old people that can't really hear you, bless them. No. And you're like shouting down the phone. You actually in the training had to say it in a certain way, the way they made you say stair lift and things like that, It was bad. So there was a lot of time.
Did you sell lottery tickets for a while, or is
that? No, I didn't. No, stair lift can be classed as a lottery ticket to some, I suppose. But yeah, that was rubbish, to be honest.
And did that period in your life just utterly reinforce your desire to make a career out of music?
Completely, because we gigged the weekends and we lived together. It was like living as students, but you didn't have, all our friends were at uni after college, and we'd go and visit them in Sheffield or Manchester and be like, that's so much fun, look, they don't have to do anything, they get us money, student loan, and they're having fun, and we work full time, be in the office for 7, 8, it was horrible. So I think Ben was the first one to go, I just can't do this anymore. I have to leave Yorkshire. I'm going to ACM. Right. And I think that sparked panic in all of us because we were so attached to the band. Especially me. I was like, I don't want to not play with Ben and Dave, especially because, we had chemistry. So I was like, all right, well, I'll go then. And Dave was like, well, I'll go then. And then Charlie the same. So we all enrolled. We all got in. And we all moved from Yorkshire down to Guildford in 2010. And that's when, going back to your question, at that point I was a bit older, a bit more mature, a little bit, and I was going, right, well now I've got an actual loan, I'm taking money out, back then it was 3,600 quid a year. So it was still a lot of money, and I think I just went, right, don't mess this up. Of course, that's when I met my girlfriend, Hannah, so that's stopped going in after that for quite some time. But in that 3 years, I got my degree.
Yeah.
But in that time, that's when I met Rob. I met him in the beginning of the second year. Met Rob, met you, and then suddenly...
I think this is a freaky, freaky quirk of fate, and I don't know if I've remembered this properly or not. But But literally, was that time that when you were working in the Stoke and Rob and I went in there to get a pizza for lunch, was that the first time that...
Yeah.
I mean, you should tell that story, because I just think that that's just like, you know, that is 1,000,000 to 1.
So the only reason that I know Rob at all before that was my obsession with Nuno. I used to look up N4 guitars on YouTube, because YouTube had just been a thing. And I found this Python Skin N4 that was like a limited run. I was like, oh, so cool. Went on, there's this dude with a ponytail, glasses and a big beard, burly, jolly guy, shredding away. I was like, he didn't quite play He Man Woman Hater right. I'll let him off. He's all right. In this video, I was like, that's a really cool guy. And, you know, his laugh is so distinctive. And anyway, that had sort of, I remember that. And I actually ended up having a big keyboard warrior fight. Before I had YouTube, I had a troll account back then. Shouldn't know if I should be saying this online. I had a little troll account.
Man, they've just gone down in my estimation.
Yeah, I did. It was mainly for people that were being trolls that I would troll them.
Right, okay. So you're like troll hunter.
Yeah, okay. The account was called Your Mum Has Balls.
I bet I could probably still find some stuff.
I deleted the account. Yeah, it definitely did. And there was a guy that was trolling Rob in this video. And I went on and trolled the guy. I was, you know, like defending Rob, even though I didn't know the guy or anything about him. But that was my thing. There's probably someone watching this that was like, I've been trolled by you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, so when he walked into the pub, he didn't have long hair. He'd shaved it all off. He was wearing like a one of those khaki green safari cap hat things.
Was he?
Just classic Rob.
Yeah.
You know, apparel. Anyway, he chuckled to himself and I went, and that's what flicked it.
Right.
I went, you're that guy from YouTube, aren't you? He's like, yeah. I was like, yeah. I've seen you play an N4. And he's like, I remember that, blah, 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 blah. And then I don't know why, but something in my head went, you should ask him if he wants to jam, in my head. So I went, do you want to jam? He's like, well, do you play guitar? I was like, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, I play guitar. And it became this kind of, he went back outside with his pizza that day at the Stoke. And there was a bunch of guys that so I'd been at a house party the week before, got really drunk, and there was a jam going on in the lounge of this house party, and I went in there and I just shredded my heart's content. And those guys were at the party, and they'd remembered that and told Rob when he went outside and went, oh, that guy was at a house party last week, he's really good or whatever. He came back in and went, yeah, we'll have a jam, you know, you've come really highly regarded from those guys out there. Yeah, give me your number. And then he went, I'm doing a festival in it this month, do you want to play guitar for me? Monkey Fest. And do you have a drummer and a bass player? Yeah, I live with a drummer and a bass player. And then after that, and then it was the following month, came down to Sticks with you and Lee, and Rob, and did Whammy DT was the first video.
Was it really? As I said, in my mind, I just remember going for Pete, and Rob and I don't even normally go there for lunch or whatever like that. And I just remember some bloke behind the bar literally going, "Do you want to jam?" And sort of thinking,
yeah,
that's pretty forward.
Yeah,
But you know, but it's just like, and also as well, I don't know. It's one of those things, isn't it? Like, you know, in those many strains of life that are going on in alternate universes, it was just like, was a real like 1,000,000 to 1. Totally.
But, you can't plan that kind of thing or write it even.
So go back to, I remember again in the early days, you sort of saying, I'm going to try and bring this back to the sort of the education side of things now, and sort of saying that you struggled with the idea that quite early on at ACM you realised that you could have a career in music as a guitar player, and you wanted to be out there doing it.
Yeah.
But that actually the sort of the constraints of the lectures and having to be here were almost at odds with that, and that it was quite a difficult last sort of year or so for you at ACM. What can you?
Yeah. It was exactly like you say. after meeting Rob and then sort of becoming, and with you and Andertons, and then everything kind of taking off a bit, with the YouTube channel, and I was teaching guitar on YouTube and doing videos, and then stuff started to take off. I was in ACM a lot less, and then I got in that band with James Toseland, and then that took off because we were in the studio for a while, and then he wanted to start touring, so I was in ACM a lot less, and that was in the final year when the dissertation had to be in, and that was really difficult because, well, my experience of that, and to all those that are watching that are in that position, like, totally, if it's a great opportunity, you really need to weigh it up, because at the time I really didn't know. And the guy at ACM, my course leader, said, it's going to be fine, but you just need to make sure that you do balance it, because otherwise you won't be eligible to pass or whatever. Unfortunately, when I handed my dissertation in, this course manager changed over, and the guy that came in just decided that it wasn't acceptable, and so my dissertation was capped at a pass because I was away on tour a bit too much.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think if you can weigh up your opportunities and see if it's worth actually going and doing that tour rather than finishing, I mean, I'd probably say get a degree.
Really?
To be perfectly honest, yeah, because it's easy for someone like people like us to go, yeah, but we work in this all the time, right? But I think for a lot of people trying to get into either the session world, or your band to be signed, or online stuff like YouTube, they're very hard. All three of those things are really hard to achieve. So realistically, if you want to stay in music, you're either going to be doing function gigs, teaching, and you might find a break at some point, but that's the reality of it, right? So having something like a degree in the musical area of things, whether it's guitar, production, whatever, I think is a really valuable thing to have, because then you can at least prove that you're more qualified than Joe Bloggs over there that never did that, but is,
Gosh, that's a tricky one. I can't remember who it was that I was doing an interview with. Another, an older guy, but again, his advice was almost kind of not the opposite of that, but it was like he'd taken a very selfish, like every time a musical opportunity came up that in his mind was like better than where he was at, all the loyalty went out the window, and it was just like, take the next one, because it's like their offer might not ever come again.
I struggle with that. Loyalty is big for me.
Right.
With my friends and with everybody that, I mean, if I did that, it'd be going around in my head, what do they think of me now? Like that kind of thing. Like, have I really ruined things? So I appreciate that, because it gets you far. But I also think on the flip side, it's really good just to be the best person you can be before anything else, really.
Life advice.
Like if I was not a nice guy, you wouldn't want to work with me, would you?
No, I'm not.
I don't mean that he was
not suggesting be a nasty guy, but take the view that if you're in a band that's here, and another band that's here goes, do you want to be our guitar player? Yeah, it's like that person had said every time that opportunity went, he was just like, yeah. And of course, he ended up touring with. I'm pretty sure I remember who it is now, but he ended up touring with the elite level. Yeah,
But that's great. It depends what you want out of it. If you're really passionate about your original material, then that's really a choice that you need to make about how attached to it you are. Whereas when you're playing in bands for the sake of playing in bands and enjoying playing, then really it's a choice whether to take that experience or not. And with the Tozen thing, at the time Dorje was trying to get going, and me, Ben and Dave thought for our career, it's way more beneficial to take the thing where someone's going, we're going to record now and we're going to go on tour and this, that and the other. And it was James Toseland. I mean, for those who don't know, he's a really famous motorcyclist.
World champion, multi-world champion.
Yeah, 2-time world champion. But yeah, we took that opportunity based on that the idea that you're just saying. And it really didn't work out. So I think from my experience, it's better to just stick to the thing that you feel excited about and passionate, because it will pay off if you pursue it,
Well, I guess people will now, or certainly people that have followed, Chappers and Andertons on YouTube will start to begin to say, oh yeah, I sort of feel a bit more like that's where I first met you, and they'll perhaps be a bit more familiar with what's happened to you since then. But talk about, musically, you've had you're still a young guy, but you've done some pretty big stuff, with obviously you've been at Dorje, Tosca, the Toesland stuff, the Frog Leap stuff. I mean, tell us about some of the highlights of the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, well, Dorje was the main serious one, the first thing that kicked off. We'd released that EP, it hit #1 for like a while. It was
Crazy.
a couple of weeks it was there actually in America and England. So that, I think, really sort of energized us all. And then we've done, that we did our first bus tour with Rob. Like he wanted to do it for like full blast, so we had Phil X and the Drills came over and we did that whole bus tour around England. That was an incredible time because for the three of us, me, Ben and Dave especially, first time on a bus, first time on tour, like lads, like playing these gigs and having booze every night. It was pretty fun. But then, then Tosca became a thing, and I think that was, for so long we'd not done music. As I say, that old band I lived with in Yorkshire, it was more in line with that in terms of the music. But it'd been a long time since we kind of stretched our sort of progressive side of things and written just anything we felt like. It didn't have to stick to any sort of agenda, being instrumental especially. So that got exciting, and then we moved to Brighton. Everyone moved to Brighton in 2013, and then that kicked off and started getting gigs and people started really enjoying it. And then Dorje and Tosca sort of were doing this, Tosca was getting more gigs and better gigs, and then Dorje was the same thing happening, releasing EPs. And then the two were going in tandem, and then I suppose then, Rob had Theo, Rob and Nat had their baby, and then that kind of took him out of the picture for a bit in band stuff. So Tosca's just kind of been the main focus, and it's been amazing. And then obviously with Frog Leap, this is over the last 5 years, you say.
Yeah.
But then Frog Leap happened maybe a year and a half ago now. Meeting Leo through Nam through the Chapman thing, because he played Chapman guitars, and this was 3 Nams ago now, doing a cover with him online, and then it became, do you want to come over to Norway, hang out? And then I brought Hannah with me, and then he was like, I'm doing a new cover, do you want to get involved? Yeah, whatever. Turns out to be Africa, so Hannah sings the chorus, I do a solo. Then it's like the second most viewed video he's got. It's like 34 million views. It's mental. And then he rang me one day, said, I'm thinking about doing this live. Oh, that's a good idea, man. He's like, yeah, I don't really want to do it if you don't want to do it, though. Do you want to be the guitarist? I was like, yeah, okay. That's a really, thanks, So I got on board straight away because I just thought it'd be great fun. And that's been, in terms of those like daydreams that you have where you go, when you want to start playing guitar and you think about the kind of gigs you'd love to do one day, that's been the thing that's allowed that to happen, We played Nova Rock just not long ago, and that was like 40,000 people, main stage, 1 a.m. Insane. So that's where you stand there and you go, wow, fair play. This is something I'd never thought I'd get to experience, and sure enough, it's happening. So
I cannot imagine. One of the things that I think I like the most about you as a guitar player is, I mean, you obviously, again, I think you're an insanely talented guitar player. I still remember that first Aromancy solo and almost refusing to believe that could even be done in one take until I saw the video of you do it in one take. What I do love about you is you're quite a serious gearhead, in the sense of you take a lot more interest in what it is about the gear that creates the soundscape that you're trying to create. Particularly probably on the Tosca side. I mean, obviously Tosca being the instrumental band, it's much more than just, playing guitar. It's creating a soundscape, for want of a better word. But so tell us about the gear journey, and what is it that has always piqued your interest about equipment?
Well, I mean, I honestly didn't genuinely had no interest in the gear I used before I got involved with Rob and met you guys and stuff. In the sense that I didn't even know what a valve amp was 2 years before that. I had played a Marshall DFX, like one of those little 212 combos, and that I was like, it's the best sound ever. Honestly, you're not gonna. And my mate had got a 50 watt Mesa Recto, and I'm like, yeah, but it's 50 watts. Mine's 100 watts. It's gonna be great. Like, so he was like, yeah, all right, bring it over. And that was my introduction to valve amps. Like, he turned us up to 1, and mine was on like 6, and it just wiped the floor with it. And I was like, what is this wizardry? So then I bought a valve amp. I got my JVM, and so my rig up until meeting Rob was a JVM 410, which I still have and love, a Boss DD6, a DD7, and a PH2, and that was it. And I had that for years and years and years, and that's all I used. Didn't care about anything else.
That sounds very Nuno inspired.
Yeah, that was literally it. Just all I cared about. And I was always like, guitar straight into amp, that's all you need. You don't need anything else. Like anyone else that you don't want your pedals to play for you. That's just nonsense. And now my pedal board's bigger than 90% of any other guitar. But I got into it, yeah, I think through, Rob, the whole gear demo thing, and then seeing that became more of an interest of mine through, it's an opportunity to work and get work. And also, it's guitar, it's another side to it that I didn't really think about, that actually you can really get geeky about and get involved and learn loads. So yeah, and then that journey started there. It was always based around, I had the JVM for the mainstay for years and years, but the pedals started to grow. And then I heard of Strymon. My mate, my Hannah's housemate, he had a Strymon timeline, and he had it set up in stereo one day, and I came over, and I just heard it as I came through the front door and went, what on earth is that guitar sound? Wandered in, he showed me around the pedal. So sure enough, I used my student loan to buy one like the following week. And
student loans single-handedly propping up most music shops in the UK.
Absolutely, yeah, totally do it. If you have a student loan, buy some gear. And then that started it all off, and then it became, and then I got a Mesa Flux drive. I started to realise how different pedals reacted. Rob would give me a handful of stuff like the Buffalo Effects Germanium Fuzz, which I still use to this day. Realizing that all these different elements can give you so many more colors on your tonal palette. And then it was like the Mobius came out, so I got the Mobius, and then the big set, and then you start collecting, and then it became, how do I turn all these on and off with ease? And then got the gig rig, and I think, yeah, I just love gear, and specifically when it comes to Tosca and soundscapes and stuff, in a way the pedals do kind of play for you, because when you have a singer in a band, 90% of listeners are focused on the singer, and then the band embellish that experience around it. But, the guitarist might change his rig, you wouldn't even know, because, as long as it's kind of similar, you still focus on the singer. In an instrumental band, you don't have any of that. And so if I start changing things up, maybe it's not noticeable to those people that come see us or whatever, but to me, like, if I changed the Big Sky, for example, it would completely change the character of the sound for that section of that song, and suddenly you're changing the sound of the band, really. So it's really important to me, and that's why I've stayed with the Strymon stuff, and obviously now I use Victory, but that was very much a kind of being involved with the design of the Kraken. It was still shaped around what I wanted to hear anyway, so, and they're the perfect amps for me now, and it's kind of just that whole, I haven't really changed it.
Because I remember hearing you play, I forget where it was, it might have just been the Boiler Room or something like that, and you had this, I don't recall it at that stage being about the stereo nature of it, but you had a 5150 and a JVM set to quite different sounds, but running in parallel together. Yeah. And I remember hearing that and just going, it's almost like everything about the Marshall that you just went, I wish it had a bit more X.
Yeah,
and everything about the PV that you sort of think, or that you sort of go, I wish it, or the 50, whichever variant of the 5150 you had, whatever, the two together somehow just was like, that's the sound.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, that the design project with Martin at Victory was very much about trying to sort of recreate that in something more portable and more realistic to go and gig with and stuff.
Well, with those, it's a really funny, I had the 5150 and the JVM back in Yorkshire when we were recording the album with the old band Chasing Jade, and that's when I stumbled across that combination, because my friend who was mixing it and recording it, I had my JVM, he had a 5150, and we tried it just to see what it sounded like, and it was like the ultimate tone for, like, you know, modern heavy with any kind of ambience, because you could roll the volume down and it'd be this beautiful clean, and as you turned it up it became this just almighty sound that had all the clarity you need. And so I'd always remembered that combination. And then, yeah, like you say, that's what I did. I found a 5150. It was the Mark 1, not the block letter, but it was the Mark 1. And then I just started pairing it up, and then it just did that thing. It took the fizz out of the 5150 and it added the girth to the Marshall sound. And so that was just the sound that I was like, after that, I'm not using that. And so when we did the Kraken, that was kind of the foundation, and it's just tweaking those things, you know, even more so. And I still use two, because one channel is based around one kind of sound, the other, so I have them always opposite channels. Yeah.
Where did you, I mean, I think most guitar players are familiar with this concept that if you turn the volume down on your guitar, your overdriven valve amp will clean up. But I felt you took that to like levels that I'd personally never heard before, in that, you know, you were getting the most dynamic, sparkly, clean sounds.
Yeah.
You know, presumably with the volume almost off on the guitar. To the fattest, biggest guitar sounds with the volume on full.
Yeah.
Is that you know, did you have another guitar player that you discovered that was doing that before you, or was that a sort of an accidental discovery? Or
it was, I'd say half and half, in the sense that I kind of took it further just out of my own curiosity and trying to make it work. But where I became aware that was the thing, was actually the Tender Surrender video by Steve Vai.
Right.
Do you remember that? Where he's wearing like a suit and he's like flying around, he's all like flamboyant. And then there's this one bit where he's cleaning up to go back into the verse. And as he's doing it, between every chord, he's turning it down a tiny bit, until it's nearly off, and it's back to this clean sound that he has. And I think that's when I learned that that's how you did it. And then years later, just doing that. And it was mainly out of convenience, because I didn't have a switcher. I didn't know you could get those. And I didn't have the foot switch, which was a 5-pin DIN on the 5150, and then the JVM's some other wizardry. So it was way easier just to keep everything on, turn them off manually, and just turn the volume down.
I think it's a better sound. I really do. I think we should try and recreate it here, but you know, 100%, if you're thinking I'd like to hear more about this, go and listen to the launch video that Rabea did for the Kraken, because there is this introduction of this incredibly dynamic, sparkly, clean tone with big reverbs, and you know, and then there's this literally gradual, or you know, like, and it's like listening to some sort of Ford Mustang taking off down the road, and you're just sitting there going, "Wow!" It's all from the volume pot on the guitar. It's I mean, maybe we can do it in here, sort of with. It's so haunting. Kind of I love it. I mean, I think, again, we've got the amps ever so low volume in here. I think
it needs to be
live.
Guns,
you'd hear a much bigger, but it just sounds amazing. And that's just using a reverb pedal, isn't it?
In fairness, that is great. That's a GFI Specular Tempest on Infinity Reverb. It's just insane. It's really, really good.
I'm gonna loan. That's the one that we have in the video. I'm gonna loan it to Rabea, because it's like, much as I think. I absolutely don't think that that's better than the Strymons, but
it has a similar vibe to it.
Yeah, and it's so much, because it's a reverb and a delay in one pedal. It could take the place of quite a load of pedals on the Strymon board, and it's MIDI, and
It gets that vibe.
I'll
But
lend
yeah,
it to you. You can
thank
tell me whether you like it next time I see you.
Awesome.
So we've talked a little bit about the Kraken and the amps and stuff like that. But prior to that, Rob asked you to get involved with Chapman, which must have been kind of crazy because you've had a Chapman signature series for
a long time,
a while now, haven't
probably
you?
way before it was really deserved. I mean, I got involved with Chapman kind of by accident, you know, because that was when I used to come up to the old warehouse video room when you guys would be shooting, and I remember the first time I did anything for Chapman, which was changing the shape of this on a piece of paper with a Sharpie because he needed to redesign it. So I did that, and then demo stuff, and then it wasn't very long, maybe a year into knowing you guys, maybe a year or two, and then Rob was like, "Do you want a signature model guitar?" And me at the time thinking, "Yeah, I really do, but why? Because I'm not anybody." Like, you know, it seemed really weird, but I thought, you know, it'd be cool anyway, and then designed it. And that's been, how many years must that have been now? Like 4 or 5 maybe.
Yeah.
And the second prototype is, I still use it. It's this one.
Yeah.
Like that.
Nice.
That's the second prototype that I relicked and turned into a...
You can so see a certain other guitar player inspiring that one before you've kind of done your own thing a bit more, haven't you?
This one is, and I still gig this and use this all the time because there's so much vibe in it now. Even though I'd beaten it up, I've then beaten it up further. Like that gouge in the above the pickups there is all me. That's not...
Oh, here.
No, that you see where the top...
Oh, there's like a crater. I didn't even see that at first, yeah.
That's all me from gigging. Like, that's not something I'd done before. And so I love that you can beat the hell out of it.
You know what makes me laugh as well? If someone actually did that as a relic and put that much of a hole in it, I can hear customers going, "It's so contrived, that would never happen if you..." You know, and yet you sit there going, wow. And that's not even like, what's that, 5 years old, that guitar?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 2014.
Is it made of paper mache or something? I mean, it's like, I can't believe how much stuff's been gouged out of that.
It's pretty mental. But that's it. You can beat the hell out of it. And to be fair, the thing with the Chapman stuff, again, it's solid stuff. So, yeah, that guitar I used for a long time and it was really cool. And then it wasn't until designing this one where I think it was kind of I felt a little bit more comfortable in the fact that I was doing more online and being more of a guitarist in the industry or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, so I made this, and this is people really like this one.
Yeah.
And this is just one from the shop, but this one, I keep seeing photos of it on Instagram, people buying them and loving them, and it's just mental, to be honest.
I remember, I see there's definitely two kind of camps for artist signature guitars. You've got the artist that wants a signature guitar that basically goes, "Look, I basically really like the stock model that you do, so can you just do it in my colour?"
Yeah.
And hooray.
Yeah.
And then you've got the guys, maybe more like, I guess, things like the Gem and stuff where it's much more, you can see the artist has gone, okay, let's really look at how we make this guitar to be the best. And this is much closer, for me anyway, to that kind of, you know, this was a ground up design for you rather than, can we just make that one a funky colour, you know?
But I didn't want it to be an obvious signature. The only thing that, if you don't know anything about Chapman or me or YouTube or anything like that, the only thing that would signify that is the little logo on the back.
Yeah.
And outside of that, it's just a guitar that someone might look at and go, "That's a cool guitar, I'd like to play it."
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of people have bought them now, is because of that. I think it's just a cool, different kind of guitar. It's a familiar shape, but then it's the neck wood and just looks different, you know?
I like the fact it's all horses for courses, isn't it? But I like the fact that rather than going down the 7 and 8 string route, which many sort of drop tune players will go down, you stayed with 6 strings but went down the baritone route.
Yeah, because I'm not good enough to play 7 string. Like, can't hack the extra strings, threw me off too much. But yeah, I did. I loved 6 string, and then the idea that you could play so low, but it felt just the same as a normal guitar was really cool to me. Again, was one of those things, started as a curiosity, became an obsession, and now, yeah, you can have this in a baritone, and I love it. I think it's just, it feels like a different instrument.
Yeah.
You write differently, and the kind of stuff you play is different.
I think I would say this, wouldn't I, because I make my living out of selling guitars, but I think everybody who owns a regular scale length 6 string should get to a store and try a baritone.
Yeah.
Because it's this weird blend of total familiarity. It's like all the chords and everything all the notes are in the same place,
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
even the feel is. But all of a sudden, musically, you just do everything differently.
Yeah,
it's
completely.
a really inspiring.
There's a warmth
instrument.
to it, and it somehow it maybe because it vibrates more on your lap when you're playing too, because the strings are thick. I don't know, but it just makes you feel different when you play certain things.
Yeah.
Like you could take any pop chord progression, play it on a baritone, it immediately sounds way cooler. Play Eagle Eye Cherry on a baritone and see what happens. You'll love it.
So let's just have a little bit. You know, you are very much the modern model, I think, for a guitar player that can financially support themselves, you know, or have a comfortable living from, because, you know, you are going, okay, yes, I want to make my own music, but I accept that that's not necessarily the earner that it might have been 25 years ago. Or whatever.
Yeah.
You've cracked this whole YouTube demonstrator kind of thing, or at least, you know, you're being very successful at it. You've done some teaching courses. You're working with brands on a product development level. So, you know, all these straws. Do you think that is that the model now for anybody that wants to, you know, apart from like that very, very, very top of the tree,
Yeah.
who, yes, out of every 50,000 guitar players, one of them will be Steve Vai or Eric Clapton or whatever like that, John Mayer. But, you know, the next big chunk of the pyramid is going to have a multitude of incomes to make it really work.
Yeah, I fully think, I mean, I can only speak from my experience, but I feel like nowadays it's really important to diversify yourself. I think the industry, whether it be for bands or you know, with Tosca, I'd noticed the industry that would be doing stuff like Download Festival and these kind of, that circuit is still catching up to the idea that online is as powerful as it is for bands even, but for somebody that, you know, works on YouTube like myself and you guys and everything, you know, you have to, the amount of things I had to like become more competent at, whether it be like editing video or shooting video or, you know, like engineering audio, and then realizing that you've got a bit of a knack for design, or like, it's really important to explore all your skills, whether or not you've discovered them yet or not. You might be really good with logistics, but you're a great guitar player, but you might be really good at logistics. Turns out you're really good at being a tour manager. It's this completely different route, but I think having fingers in many pies is just crucial nowadays, because, like you say, it's a very small group of people that get to be in the elite. And, you know, life's expensive. It really is, you know, like trying to live and support yourself and be able to do the things you want to do if you don't want to work a normal job. And it is a bit edge of your seat for a lot of years. For me, I was like taking on job after job after job and not really having a lot of personal life time because I was kind of scared that it would dry up a bit, and then you're kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I never want to work in an office again, basically, like that mentality. So, yeah, it's definitely, my advice would be just diversify, like try and find as many different strengths in yourself that you can offer.
Do you know? I think one of the most undervalued skills that you have is knowing how to invoice someone correctly for your services.
Really?
Well, I honestly, not the amount you invoice, just the fact that you send an invoice.
Right.
It's like the number of musicians that are just utterly hopeless when it comes to finances. You know, just going, I need to send this out and I need to understand how to do a tax return, and, you know, all that kind of, it's just...
Well, I attempted tax return twice, and now my mum does it.
Oh, well, at least you got somebody doing it.
But yeah, that, you learn how to do something and then you just do it. I just do what I was told in that area. Like with the YouTube thing, Rob went, make a YouTube channel, put videos out, blah, 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 X, Y, Z, here's all the bullet points. And I went, okay, I'll do that. It seems to have worked for you, so I'll do the same thing. And that's my approach with everything. And yeah, someone went, you need to send an invoice, this is how you do it. All right, fine, I'll do it.
I think that other thing as well, and I worry slightly now, I know, not just at my daughter's school, but I think schools generally, you know, you go, what do you want to do? What do you want to do when you grow up? And you don't hear, I want to be an astronaut or a doctor or anything anymore. You just hear, I want to be a YouTube star.
Oh, no.
You know, it's like, oh man, it's like, but I do think, that there is you have to accept that on day one, that you are doing everything for free and favors. And just, there is a journey. And I guess for some people that journey might be, if you're very, very lucky, it might be 6 months to a year. But, more realistically, it's 5 years, and probably even more realistic than that, it just won't happen anyway. It's just like but you absolutely, everybody I know, Rob, Rabea, all the guys I know and girls that I know who are doing the YouTube thing, all lived hand to mouth for a number of years before there was really enough income coming in for it to start to feel like... I mean, like Rob put me up in his flat in Brighton for nearly a year without paying rent, because I didn't have the money to pay rent, and he knew that I was trying to do this job, this career. He was already way ahead, so he sorted me out. But without that, it would have been really tough at the time to live in Brighton, especially, and make it work. And that is true. You do a lot of stuff for free, so you can prove yourself, you can prove your worth and your value, and then people start to come back, and then you can start saying, this is what it's going to cost, So look, I've really enjoyed this. It's been a fantastic insight. I said, even it always surprises me I can know someone for the best part of 10 years and still go, I didn't know that. But what does the future look like? I mean, in an absolutely ideal world, do you set yourself life goals or benchmarks to try and hit, or are you just going to see where the river takes you?
I guess a little bit of both, but I kind of know some areas of things. Like I want Tosca to be able to fill venues that are bigger and better, and be able to tour with those bands that I look up to and play with, like Carnival and Animals as Leaders, and because we sound similar, we can fit with them. But I would love to have an experience with Ben and Dave where we can tour like the States, do Asia and Australia. That would be cool. Always be creating music and stuff like that. But I think that's the goal there. As a guitar player, I just feel like nowadays I just want to be as well-rounded as I could possibly be, so I can dabble in X, Y, and Z genres, because I just love that. So that's always been a goal, is just to progress, but in every area I possibly can as a player. Do you know what I mean? So
what, could we expect like a country album from you in a couple of years' time, or
I definitely love doing the kind of music like like what Snarky do, and like Lettuce and Eric Krasno, and this kind of jam bandy, like soul-y fusion stuff. Like I'm such a fan of it, and I do that in my own time, but it's never what you see on YouTube. Only very rarely do I do that. So later down the line, I mean, I love Fenders and Strats, and I'll be playing a blues rig and just ripping it, and that's what I'd love to do further down the line when I'm bored of playing really loud, heavy amps with loads of gain,
Well, look, I'm wherever life takes you, there'll always be a place for you here to come
beautiful words.
Sleep or
I appreciate that.
Or eat some food or whatever. Who knows? Maybe we could resurrect your somewhat disastrous career as a salesman in Andertons.
I was so bad at that.
It didn't last very long.
No, it was about a month, I think, if that. I think I did 3 weekends.
I think so. Anyway, look, man, thank you very much. It's lovely again to have you on in a proper format. Hopefully we'll play out with something now, but links below if for some crazy reason this is the first time you've seen Rabea. Links in the description below for where you can find out more. And yes, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We shall see you next time.